Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. It happened at Karen's sister's birthday party. We chose to celebrate at Billy's bar down the road, where a few tables were put together and we drank and danced to the music of a live band as the time flew by with laughter. We had been rejoicing there for over 2 hours, and it was then that a detail suddenly caught my attention. My girlfriend Emma is dancing with my best friend Scott. This would have been perfectly normal, but what made my heart skip a beat was when I saw his hand slowly slide over her back and end up on her hip. To my surprise, Emma neither pushed his hand away nor made a sound to stop it. Next, I noticed Scott's leg pressing against Emma's in a way that she still didn't react to, as if she deserved it. At that moment, their actions completely alerted me. I pretended to talk and laugh with the others at the table and quietly changed places to get a better view of them. When the music came to a screeching halt, they seemed to be lost in their own world, and it took several seconds before they parted as if in a dream. Upon returning to my seat, I caught the frequent glances exchanged between them, even though they were sitting 4 chairs apart on opposite sides. When the next tune comes on, I invite Emma to dance. Wrapping my arms around her slender waist, I asked softly, "Is everything okay tonight?" "Sure. Why?" She replied lightly. "You seem distracted tonight. It always seems like you're thinking about something, or have something on your mind." "You're overthinking it, honey." "I'm fine, really." There was a hint of unnaturalness in her tone. We lingered on the dance floor for 3 songs before returning to our seats. It wasn't long before Scott asked Emma to dance with him, and I never took my eyes off them. Once again, they were extremely close, his hands once again restlessly caressing her hips. This time, Emma seemed to say something, because he quickly withdrew his hand and darted a sheepish glance in my direction. Half an hour later, Emma got up to go to the restroom, and about a minute later, Scott got up and followed as if nothing had happened. I had already seen too many suspicious signs that night, so after waiting a few minutes, I too got up and headed for the restroom. Scott wasn't there, and if he had returned to his seat, we would have met in the hallway. That means he must have slipped out the back door. As my hand was about to touch the back door handle, a thought occurred to me. If Scott and Emma were really cheating on each other outside, my going out the back door would surely alert them, give them a chance to separate, and then make up an excuse that they were just out to escape the smell of smoke and get some fresh air. I immediately changed my mind and folded back inside the bar, leaving quietly through the front door and tiptoeing around to the back of the building. As I turned to the northeast corner of the bar, the scene in front of me made my blood instantly curdle. They were kissing passionately, so completely enraptured in their two-person world that they didn't even notice my footsteps. Enraged, I swung a heavy punch, and I clearly felt the bridge of his nose break under my fist, and blood spurted out. As he covered his face in pain, I struck him hard in the stomach again, and he let out a mournful scream as his whole body bowed into a ball. I followed that up with another heavy blow to his temple, and he fell to the ground with a heavy thud. An urge to add a few more kicks surged through me, but I eventually restrained myself. He'd learned his lesson the hard way. I turned to Emma and said coldly, "Looks like I broke his nose. Maybe you can make it heal a little faster with your kisses." With that, I left without looking back, leaving the woman who used to wear my engagement ring and the man who used to be my best friend lying on the floor. When I got home, I immediately started packing up the things Emma had left in my apartment and stuffing them all into garbage bags. Just then there was a knock at the front door, and the sound of the key turning told me it was Emma returning. When she pushed her way in, I didn't even look up, continuing the action in my hands, and said indifferently, "You're just in time to take all this garbage with you, so I don't have to make a point of throwing it in the trash. Can we talk?" Emma said softly, "I can't. What I saw tonight says enough." "It's not what you think." "It doesn't matter anymore, Emma. I saw it with my own eyes, and that's enough. You broke Scott's nose and dislocated his jaw. He's kind of lucky. I should have added 6 more kicks and broken a couple of his ribs. I've never seen you so violent. Some things are better left unseen." I said coldly, "Now please take your things and get out of here." "Please, Nathan. I made a stupid mistake. I had too much to drink and was out of my mind for a moment." "Yeah, well, it's a good thing I caught you making that kind of mistake in time, before the wedding and not after." "Please, Nathan, it's really nothing, trust me." From the moment you said yes to my proposal and put on my ring, you were supposed to be a woman who belonged to one man only, and that man was supposed to be me. But you showed me that I can't trust you." I paused. "Get your stuff and leave." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she began to remove her engagement ring. "Keep it," I said. "I don't want it to remind me of anything about you. And keep it so Scott doesn't have to buy you another one. Consider it my wedding present to you." She carried 2 garbage bags towards the door. As she opened the door, she turned to me and said, "I'm sorry, Nathan. I do love you. I really do. It's not what you think it is." With that, she left. The next day she called and asked if I wanted to talk, and I just hung up. She tried several more times, but I reacted the same way each time, and she finally gave up. Scott tried to contact me about a dozen times over the next month, and eventually I warned him that if he ever came within an arm's length of me again, I'd send him to the hospital for a month. He finally got the message and stopped bothering me. 8 months later, Emma and Scott were married. When I received their wedding invitations, I couldn't help but laugh. As a geologist working for an oil company, I am often required to travel, some for extended periods of time. Shortly after Emma and Scott's wedding, I was sent to Alaska to evaluate the potential of a new oil field. This forced me to leave the city for almost 11 months, and since there was no one waiting for me at home either, I stayed in that area. When I have free time, I'll be traveling around Alaska or Canada. Do I think of Emma on those cold nights? Yes, I do miss her, and a lot. I had loved her with all my heart and was sure she felt the same way about me. Our encounter was a complete accident, in the truest sense of the word. I wasn't concentrating enough on my driving at the time and accidentally hit her car in the parking lot. She wasn't at her car, so I wrote my name and office address on a piece of paper and stuck it under her windshield wipers. 3 hours later, my receptionist called to say a lady wanted to see me. She said you were waiting for her. I checked my calendar and didn't have any appointments that day, but I didn't have anything urgent on my hands, so I had Francis bring the lady to my office. 2 minutes later, when the office door opened, I met the most beautiful woman I had ever seen in my life. If there is such a thing as love at first sight, then in that moment I fell deeply in love. "Mr. Nathan, I'm Grace Miller, and I'm here to accept your invitation," she said. "Invitation?" I didn't respond for a moment. "I'm afraid I don't quite understand." "Oh, wasn't the note you stuck under the windshield wiper of my car window a dinner invitation?" she said playfully, though I do think it's a bit of an extreme way to crash my car just to see me. "Dinner invitation?" I froze for a moment. "I think that was just to leave you my insurance information, but—" I looked at her face and was momentarily speechless. "But I saw the way you looked at me just now." She smiled. "So I decided to make it a dinner invitation." It all happened so fast and was a bit of a surprise for someone like me. But I wasn't completely at a loss for words and finally adjusted and said, "Are you free tonight?" She was free that night, and 3 days later, when I walked her back to her door, she gave me a kiss so passionate it made me weak in the knees. Then she grabbed my tie and pulled me into her apartment. "I wonder if you felt the same way I did when I walked into your office," she said, "but from the look on your face, you should have felt it too. And I don't want to wait a dozen more dates to watch you agonize over what to do to get me into bed." As we lay there in each other's arms, basking in the warmth of the aftermath of our passion, I asked her, "What size ring do you wear?" "Why do you ask about ring sizes?" "Because I want to go engagement ring shopping tomorrow, so I need to know the size." "Are you proposing to me?" "Hey, I thought you said you didn't believe in wasting time." "I'm just following your train of thought." Number 5.5. We set a date for our engagement, but before that date came, that night at Billy's happened. It wasn't until I returned from Alaska that I learned that Emma and Scott's marriage didn't last long. As it turns out, there's an unknown side to Scott. He has a violent streak. After he sends Emma to the emergency room for the 5th time, she finally makes up her mind to fight back. As Scott lay in bed huffing and puffing, she hit him hard in the head with a cast iron skillet. While he was in the hospital for a broken cheekbone, she moved out and filed for divorce. I learned all these things while having dinner with my cousin Richard and his wife Diana. Diana is a blunt woman who never has anything to say. "Are you going to call her?" Diana suddenly put down her cutlery and asked me seriously. "Jesus, of course not. Why would you ask that? Because in a way, you're responsible for what happened between them. How is that possible? I even left the city a full 11 months before they returned from their honeymoon. Every time they fight, it's because of you. Come on, Diana. How can I be part of their problem when they disappeared from my life for 8 whole months before I even left for Alaska? Scott is a piece of shit, Nathan. Either you haven't noticed, or because he's been your best friend since 3rd grade, you've chosen to accept that. But he's a loser. He can't even keep a job. He can't do anything right. Every time he comes home, either because he's been fired, or because he quit on his own or screwed up, Emma shakes her head in disgust and says something like, "I lost Nathan because of you." Diana continued, "The last time they fought was at the Elks Club. Scott was out of work again. Not sure if he was fired or quit on his own, but he kept complaining that the foreman was targeting him. Emma finally got fed up and told him to stop whining like a child and pull himself together as a man. Scott replied dismissively that she wouldn't recognize a real man even if she got bitten. What a real man is. Emma shot back, "You're wrong. I had a real man once, and I screwed it up. Even at your best, you're not a fifth as good as Nathan at his worst." Scott went berserk when he heard that and punched her so hard from behind that her whole body fell backward, hitting a chair and the back of her head hitting the edge of a nearby table. She lost consciousness on the spot and was hospitalized. 2 days later, she attacked him with a frying pan. As far as I know, she hasn't dated since moving out and filing for divorce. "These are very interesting," I said absently, "but I think I'll politely decline the opportunity to catch up with Emma." "Nathan, don't you ever make mistakes?" Diana asked relentlessly. "I've certainly done stupid things, but the point of a mistake is that you learn from it and learn not to repeat it. Emma was a mistake, and I'm not going to repeat it. I say that, but I do miss Emma. There are always 5 or 6 times a week that I think of her. I still have her picture in my wallet, but I have absolutely no intention of seeing her or even talking to her on the phone. She's in the past, and while I can't erase her from my memory, she can only stay in the past forever. But sometimes, whatever you want or don't want seems so insignificant in the face of fate." After a long day at the office the other day, I went to the bar to relax with a few drinks. I chose to go to Ernie's because I was dating Vanessa, the waitress there. We've been in this relationship for about a month now. It's nothing special. It's just a bed partner relationship. No one is trying to develop any kind of serious relationship. I was sitting in a card table, drinking a beer and watching the Rockies-Giants game on the big screen. That's when Vanessa puts down a fresh beer in front of me and says, "It's on the lady sitting at the end of the bar." I looked over at the end of the bar and almost blurted out, "That's not a lady, that's Emma." But I held my tongue in time. I didn't turn down that beer either. Emma took my acceptance of the beer as an invitation, and a few minutes later, she took the seat across from me. "How have you been, Nathan?" she asked softly. "Not bad, are you? Is it cold in Alaska?" "Cold as hell." She was silent for a few seconds, then asked, "Have your feelings for me changed?" "What do you mean? Do you still hate me?" "I never hated you, Emma. Was I disappointed in you?" "Yes, but I never hated you." "I'm sorry about what happened, Nathan. I really am." Emma's voice caught a little. "I've made a lot of stupid mistakes in my life, and Scott was definitely one of the biggest. But I swear to you, nothing ever happened between Scott and I, other than what I thought was harmless flirting. I had no idea that Scott would take any of this seriously. You know, Scott has always been a touchy-feely guy. Yes, he did put his hands on my hips a few times, but I saw that you noticed it too and didn't say anything. It's no big deal, but it's just the way Scott has always been. He's always been like that. But that's not what I saw in the parking lot, Emma." I looked her straight in the eye. "Nathan, you never gave me a chance to explain what really happened that night. You just made your own worst guesses and then pushed me away. What other explanation can there be for what I saw with my own eyes?" That night, I went to the restroom. When I came out, Scott was waiting for me in the hallway. He said he had something important to talk to me about and told me to go outside where it was a little more quiet. When we went outside, he told me that it was a mistake for me to marry you, that he probably loved me more than you did. He told me to break up with you and be his girlfriend. Emma paused, took a deep breath and continued, "I was laughing, thinking he was crazy. But then he suddenly hugged me and kissed me. And this is the biggest mistake I've ever made. I kissed him back. I have no excuse, except that I was too drunk and my vanity was satisfied by the fact that he said he loved me. Besides, at the time I thought it was just a kiss. Then you showed up and my life turned into a complete mess. You married him 8 months later. I said coldly, "You'd be surprised how many friends you have." She smiled bitterly and said, "After you kicked me out, rumors spread that I had betrayed you. No one would care about me. Only Scott still wanted me, and no one else cared anymore. So when he proposed, I said yes. Another stupid mistake. I sent you wedding invitations with the slim hope that you would come and stop the wedding. How could I possibly stop it? When the priest asked if anyone knows why this wedding shouldn't go ahead, I wanted you to come forward and say, yes, I'm against it because she doesn't love him. She loves me. But you didn't come. That's the truth, Nathan. Even at the moment of saying I do, deep down I knew I was making a mistake. I should have turned and fled the church when the ceremony got to the do you, Emma, take Scott part, but I didn't have the courage." She looked me in the eye and said, "That night, when you kicked me out of the apartment, I said I loved you and it wasn't a lie. And why are you telling me this now, Emma? I want you back in my life, Nathan. Even if we can't go back to being like we used to be, I need you to be in my life at least as a friend." As I sat there listening to Emma, I began to think about some of the things she was saying. Scott has indeed always been a handful, and Emma does flirt with a lot of people. It just seems to be her nature. But what really bothered me was the kiss, the gesture when they embrace, to be exact. What lingers in my mind is the way their hands embrace each other. Sometimes I'd kiss people under the mistletoe at Christmas parties, but I'd never wrapped my arms around any woman like that, never held each other as tightly as Scott and Emma. But on second thought, am I taking things too seriously? Driven by anger, am I seeing more than I actually am? Is this all really what Emma says it is? Emma sat quietly, waiting for me to say something. But what can I say? I know I still love her and I know I miss her. But the question is, do I dare take the risk? The image of that kiss and that hug will always be in my memory. The only thing I know for sure is that I don't know what to do. So I chose the easiest way. "You've given me a lot to think about," I said. "While I'm not sure I can fully accept your explanation for the other night, I'll think about it. Maybe I'll call you in a couple days." I could see the disappointment pass over her face, but she said, "At least it's a start. More than I had when I came here to see you tonight. I'm serious, Nathan. My cell phone number is still the same. Call me anytime, day or night. I'm serious. I still love you and really want you back in my life." She stood up and left, leaving me sitting there, watching her back fade away. I'm waiting for Vanessa to get off of work so I can take her home. In the car, she suddenly said, "I need to start looking for a new bed partner." "Why do you say that?" I asked. "I saw the way you looked at that woman, and more importantly, I saw the way she looked at you. There's a strong emotional connection between you, and anyone who knows how to read signals can see it. She's just someone I used to know. Nathan, there's something special between you two. You just haven't realized it yet. Honestly, honey, how much longer can I have you?" She leaned over and unzipped my pants and said, "But until then, you're still mine." When we got to her apartment, she quickly undressed and said, "Come on, honey. I want to spend as much time with you as possible before you leave. Don't say anything about me leaving. I'm not going anywhere." I replied as I undressed, all the while wondering why she was so sure I would leave. As I undressed, I suddenly realized why Vanessa and I had never developed a deeper relationship. She's fun, sexy, and enjoys intimate moments, but I just don't love her. I like her a lot, but that's about it. She prefers what we call the half and half approach, and her favorite position is leaning over the back of the couch. The first half consists of caressing her with your fingers while you do it, and the second half is the transition when she yells, "Now, baby, now." I followed her lead and she let out a moan of pleasure, encouraging me. It was at this point that a strange thought struck me. I wondered why Emma and I had never tried it this way before. No sooner had that thought flashed than Vanessa screamed and orgasmed, triggering my release. Afterward, Vanessa took me to the bathroom to clean up and then gave me another warm moment. Finally, I kissed her goodbye and drove home. On the way home, I kept thinking about why I thought of Emma when I was making out with Vanessa. I've had intimate relationships with 6 women since I broke up with Emma, but have never thought of Emma in those moments. But now, with Emma back in my thoughts, I began to think about what she had said tonight. Is that really true? Can I trust her? In my anger, did I actually see more that night than what actually happened? If we get back together, will I always have doubts? That's the crux of the matter, trust. This is necessary for a relationship. If you are wondering what the other person is doing every time you are apart, if you are guessing who she is really with every time the other person cancels a date for some reason, and if you're always suspicious when the other person says she has to work late, you can't sustain a relationship like that. This question plagued me, and as I thought about what Emma and she had said, I realized there was only one way to find the answer. I drifted off to sleep as usual, and the next morning on my way to work I stopped at Bob's Big Boy for breakfast. When I got to the office, I picked up the phone, dialed Emma's number, and asked her to meet me at Barney's Roadside Cafe at 6 p.m. She promised. When she walked in, I was already sitting at the table waiting for her. I saw her walk toward me with hopeful anticipation on her face. When she first sat down, I got right to the point and asked, "What do you want, Emma? An occasional meeting to catch up?" "That's certainly nice, Nathan, but you know what I really want. I want you back in my bed, back where you're supposed to be. The no-commitment kind. It's all about dating and dancing, but most of all, I want you back in my life." "So you're proposing a fuck-buddy relationship? Call it what you want, Nathan, but I need you back in my life. No promises, no guarantees. How about right now? Whether it's your place, my place, a hotel, or in a car, now is the best time." I threw down a bill, stood up, and followed Emma out of the bar. I don't know how this is going to play out. It all depends on whether I can learn to trust her again. This could take some time, if it actually happens at all. But we're all young and have plenty of time. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.